Seifert, and I'll be interviewing you today. Could you tell us your name and when you were born?
My name is Guthrie M. Smith, Jr., and I was born January 25th, 1942.
1942. Good year. Who were your parents?
My parents were Guthrie and Parthenia Smith. They're from Scotland, Maryland, down in St. Mary's County.
Ah, so they grew up in St. Mary's County?
Yes.
Were you born in St. Mary's County?
Yes. My father was born down in Point Lookout, down in that area, Scotland, Maryland, down. And my mother was born in Scotland, which is a little further up. And so they got married right after, I don't think she finished school. But anyway, he was 21 and she was 18, and they got married.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so where did they go to live?
They went to live with my grandmother. We lived in a two-story old farmhouse, and my grandfather was a farmer, and that's where we lived. And
where was the farm?
The farm was in Scotland,
Okay.
down Scotland Road, down in Scotland.
Okay, so you all grew up on the farm.
Yes, it was sort of semi-farm. And before I go any further, I'm the oldest of 17.
Oh my.
5 boys and 12 girls. And so I was always the one to do a lot of things and got a lot of responsibility and was responsible for the rest of them and that sort of thing. So and like I said, with the house, to make room for everyone, my father was a good carpenter. So he would take out partitions and walls and whatnot, and we all lived in that one house. And we didn't have a house of our own until 1964, when I graduated from college.
So you went to schools in St. Mary's County?
Yes, I have a picture somewhere of the one-room school that we went to that was called Scotland School. And it was, at that time in 1942, at that time my father had gone to that school. And actually the same teacher that worked with some of them worked with me also. So that was passed down. Some of the, instructors and teachers were passed down, and they lived in the community.
That's a wonderful history.
Yes.
Yeah. And so when you graduated did you graduate from high school?
Yes, I graduated from high school at George Washington Carver, which is in Lexington Park. And that's probably about 15, 16 miles from Scotland. And one of the things is that my father, I need to say a little bit about him, because he was in World War II. And he went in 41, and I was born in 42. And so he was always industrious, and so he was a barber, and he had school buses. He did a lot of things. And so the bus, he transported youth from the one area of the county, Scotland, to Lexington Park area. And so that's how I got to, we went to school on the school bus, and he did a lot of that.
Yeah, so he helped you get to school.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so you graduated from high school. What did you do when you graduated?
When I graduated from from high school, I went to Bowie.
To Bowie?
Yeah, I went to Bowie. I graduated from school, and I was the first to go to college. And so I became a model for the rest of the family.
And how did you work to get yourself into college and earn the money to go?
Well, I got a little scholarship. I got some scholarship, but my father always tried to inspire the whole family and the community and the church and everyone else to do better than he did, because he had to drop out of school because his grandfather raised him. And the other thing about him, my father was actually, his parents were white. His father was, and so he was really light complected. He was very, fair, and so we had to deal with a lot of that. but he was always forward and thinking ahead, and his experience in the service helped him out because he got out and found out, you know, what was happening and how you could achieve. And so he wanted us to be, you know, intelligent and have a degree. And so I went into Bowie, and at Bowie, and so I went in Bowie in 1960 and graduated in 64. And probably 61 was the first time I ever went to school with a white person. Oh. And so, you know, those kind of experiences, and then it, you know, can, you know, develop from there. But that's how I went to school. My grandmother was also, you know, she had a couple years and she did some teaching at that time, but in another part of St. Mary's County, in this, what they call the 7th District.
So you went to Bowie, and then you developed a love for education, or you?
Yes. I came back I came to Calvert County, and the reason why I came to Calvert County, there were just so many of us in St. Mary's, and they said, you know, maybe it'd be better for you to go somewhere else. And it's one of the best decisions that I made. And so I came to the county, and I lived in the southern part of the county with a lady named Mrs. Janey, who was the custodian at Appeal Elementary School. And that's where I started teaching at Appeal Elementary School in 1964. And so I went from there. I was a teacher, 4th and 5th graders, and I also went to, I was at Beach Elementary, I was at Appeal, I was at Beach, I was at Allen Creek, and then from there I went to the Maryland State Department of Education. I worked in migrant education and compensatory education, did a lot of traveling. I came back as principal at Appeal, and then in the county I was a supervisor and a director, and so I retired after about 33 and a half years in education.
So we're in this path. Did you get married?
I got married as soon as I graduated from college in 1964. My wife was at Bowie, and so she was a year behind me, and we got married, and she didn't go right back to school. But we got married in 64 and in July of 64. We've been married 57 years.
And what was her full name?
Her name was Mary Catherine Cheers, Cheers. And she was from Queen Anne's County. And she's one of 12.
Goodness.
We have 2. We have daughters. I have a daughter who's about 46 and another one 52. And one lives in One is lives in Calvert. She lives in Lusby, and she works on Patuxent base. And the other one, the younger one, works in D.C. with a nonprofit group. She's very, you know, going up the ladder.
Civic-minded like her dad.
Yes, you know, very, very involved. And also, I got to say, you know, my wife, I do a lot of things, and we're sort of different people, but I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for her. I have to say I'm standing on the shoulders of a strong woman. She's very, very, you know, very powerful. And one of the other things about her, so she went back to school and finished, and she was actually the first black teacher at Solomon's Elementary School just before it closed. She was the first. She worked a couple years there, and then school at Solomon's closed. Solomon's, where the museum is, closed, and they came to Appeal. And so, you know, that's how that is. And so, I went on to, you know, getting back to education. I got my master's, and never got into I started getting into a doctoral program, but I got a lot of degrees and other trainings. I did a lot of traveling, did a lot of presenting. I've been chairperson for the Board of Education for the state. You know, a lot of positions, and a lot of, and in the community, a lot of things I've been involved in the community.
When you were traveling, where was your favorite place to go?
I would say Florida, maybe. You know,
Really?
it's just, yeah, Florida.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I like Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And a buddy of mine has a place down there too, and so we end up going there quite a few sometimes.
Right. Well, that's wonderful that you've got to travel a lot and that you've stayed here in your community and helped out with many activities. I read a little bit about you, and you have stayed very busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of the things, you know, I was actually on the committee that brought Asbury here, community, and you know, Harriet E. Brown Community Center,
Right.
a lot of things in the community that have been involved in, and that's because of actually the leadership and what my father did, because my father did a lot of these things. You know, whether it be the church, I'm real active in the church with Patuxent, and you know, I was in the 4-H club, and that has helped me because, you know, the 4-H is, all of these things that you've done really makes you, you know, a better person and well-rounded.
And you're an example for other young people coming up.
Oh yeah, and you know, I've had to back off a lot of things because, like I said, I'm going to be 80 in January. But there are other things that you can do. So I'm stepping down with some things in the church, but there's still opportunities to mentor youth, whether it be in the church or whether it be in one of the schools. So, you know, with the groups like Concerned Black Men of the county, I've also belonged to the Masonic Lodge. You name it, and Calvert Alliance for Substance Abuse and all of those types of things. So I've been president and worked a lot with those kinds of groups, all kinds of groups in the county. You name it, basically.
Right.
I've been a part of it.
So you have a legacy to leave behind.
Yes, and sometimes, you know, my wife says sometimes, you know, you just want to get this recognition, but it's just a part of who I am. And it's part of who, even though my father had all these kids and responsibilities, he always reached out to other people and tried to make them better. And very seldom you would hear him say anything negative about anyone. And so that's part of what I believe in, is helping people. I do have to bring in that when I did my student teaching, I went back to St. Mary's County and at Calvert Elementary, and my brother Tubby was in the 6th grade at that time. So I did my student teaching there. So I'm almost 10 years older than he is. And so I did my student teaching in that class. And the teacher of that class taught me in the 5th grade.
Oh.
Yeah, so there, you know, those are the kind of, and when I mentioned Tubby, I'm known as Tubby's oldest brother. Tubby is a coach, and he was at Kentucky and won the national championship in basketball. And so I'm known as Tubby's oldest brother. And so, you know,
Put you in your place, didn't you?
yeah. But anyway, so there are just things that, because of examples and because of my father's example, I've tried to follow his example, and the people around me, from the church and others, I passed it on, and people will try to model, you know, where you are and what you're doing.
That's a wonderful message to pass to the next generation, that's
No.
for sure.
And I've also been president of the Historical Society. Yeah, so it's preparing for something like this really brings back memories, and it puts you said, you know, you did all of that, and I did this, and coming from the background that I came from, because until I was 10 or 11 years old, I slept in the room with my father and mother. And we lived in this 2-story house, and one time the tomato factory, migrants used to come up and can tomatoes, and this factory was close to where we lived. And so the buses were parked there beside this factory. So I woke up and it was fire was raging. So I came out of the window and jumped off the porch and went over and backed the bus up so it wouldn't burn, because there was a gas tank between the building and and that's the other thing too, is I've always been real busy, and my father let me do things, and I've always been driving tractors and cars and buses and all of those types of things.
Yeah. Kids today don't realize that they could learn a lot before they're grown if they would pay attention and not have their eyes in a phone.
Yes, and then, so the busing, because my father took trips. Yes, like I said, he was a go-getter. So he would take trips to different places, and I would go. And then after I got older, I got to drive people to, well, it'd be Luray Caverns and all these other places. So you got exposure and experience from that.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. Is there any other message that you would like to say for the future?
Well, I think that we just have to continue to, and in all of this, I haven't necessarily felt good about myself, and I've always had to work with that. But we have to remember that God is with us, and that we need to have faith, and we can do anything if we put our minds to it. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to say is just we need to just treat people fairly, and because you need to be trustworthy and honest and thoughtful, and that it will help you and help others. And so in the end, you want to do the best job you can and help others to be successful and be a good model. So that's as far as I'm concerned, that's life.
My name is Jessica Brooks, and I was born June 15th, 1986, here in Calvert County, Prince Frederick, Maryland, at Calvert Memorial Hospital.
Ah, so did you go to school here too?
I did Calvert Elementary, Calvert Middle, Calvert High. I did spend some years in between doing homeschool and home teaching.
Ah, okay. And who are your parents?
My parents are Arthur Brooks Sr. And Ernestine Brooks. Her maiden name was Smith.
Ah, so they grew up in the county also?
They did. Well, my mother, she was born in Washington, D.C. actually, but she was reared for the most part here in Calvert County. And my dad, his family, it seemed like they've been in this county for forever.
Ah, yes, yes. Well, that's wonderful to have that family history. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your family here in the county?
Oh, sure. Well, when it comes to my mother's side, her parents were Rudolph Russell Smith and Margaret Ida. She was born Margaret Ida Perrin Smith. Margaret Ida Perrin, and she married Rudolph Russell back in 1947. And so they, for the most part, they were here in Calvert County. My my mother, she was reared off of 231. Prince Frederick Boulevard actually runs through where her house once stood in the family. My grandmother, Margaret, she used to work for Miss Marguerite and Miss Sadie Gray at what's now known as the Linden House.
Oh, Linden House. Okay. So your family's been here a long, long time.
A very long time, yeah.
And so what did your immediate family do when you were born and live here in the county?
They did construction.
Ah.
Yeah, my dad at one point had a reputation of being one of the best drywaller in the county.
That's a good reputation to have.
He did work for Louis Goldstein. He did work basically throughout the county, but yeah.
That's great. And you wanted to talk about your grandmother today, you said?
Yes, for the most part.
Tell us a little bit about her?
Sure. Well, Marguerite, she was born Marguerite Ida Perrin to Benjamin Franklin Perrin and Mary Frances Gross here in Prince Frederick on Fairgrounds Road, actually. And so her parents, they worked as well for Judge Gray and Miss Marguerite. So my grandmother was named after Miss Marguerite Gray, but she decided to go by Margaret for her life. She graduated valedictorian at what's known as Central High School. At that time, it was also William Sansom Brooks. They were getting ready to build a new school at that time. And after that, she went on to Hampton University for a little bit.
What did she study?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. She wasn't there that long. It seemed like her heart was here in Calvert County.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard that from a number of residents, that their heart is here.
Yes.
And so what is the interesting story you wanted to tell about your grandmother?
Well, one thing she was known for was creating cards for everyone in the county. It seemed like if you had a chance to get to know her, she would make a homemade card. She would take the time to cut out different words and, place them on pretty background. And, she used a lot of tape, it seems like. But it seemed like it was something that touched a lot of people, and to the point, we've all held on to them for the most part. She would put some juicy fruit gum. That was her signature. Every once in a while, she might put a wishbone. We would save wishbones for her. And, she would incorporate that in her cards.
That is a wonderful idea and a wonderful tradition. Yes. And what else can you tell us about your family?
Oh, my goodness.
And yourself, because what have you been doing?
Well, I mean, I attended Morgan State University. I graduated in 2008. And so I've been working here and there for the most part. I think, like my grandmother and other in my family, we like to do more community-based initiatives, and so I think that's where my passion lies. My mother, she has a history of writing poetry. She self-published several books, and the funny part is she got that, I feel like, from my grandmother, because my grandmother used to write poetry as well. Yeah.
Did she include poetry in her cards that she made?
Sometimes, yeah. So like one of her sayings well-known sayings, I thought of you this morning and said a little prayer that God will be with you and keep you in his care. Yeah.
That's good. That's wonderful. A good tradition.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And what else can you tell me about your family that you feel should be preserved for the future?
For the future? I think just the fact that, on the parents' side, it seemed like they've always been with the Grays, it seems like. As a matter of fact, the property that the house it still stands and still within the property, it was purchased from Judge Gray. And so there seems to be this connection, where not only did my great-grandparents work for them, but, and my grandmother, but, her siblings, because my grandmother was one of 10. And so a lot of them took the time to, work at that property as well. And their children as well. So it was a generational connection, it feels like.
Was this a farming property or what?
At that time, it was farming, a little bit of farming, and
growing tobacco. Yeah, a lot of that hard work. Yes.
And messy work,
Messy, yes. And smelly.
Exactly.
Tobacco, the first time I had never seen tobacco grow. It does smell.
Yeah.
Yes. So I imagine you're familiar with that too, because it hasn't been gone that long.
It hasn't been gone that long, but thankfully I have not had that experience.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, and and with the women, they usually worked in the house, cooking and cleaning and that type of work.
Right.
Right. Yeah, and so I mean, for the most part, now one thing my great grandfather he did, we all active in the church, and so we Mount Olive United Methodist Church. was mainly our home church at that time. So he would be known for pulling out an accordion and playing. As a matter of fact, we still have the accordion.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was also known for, because he was one of the few that could drive around a certain period of time. And so he would pick up people and take them to go grocery shopping when they needed.
That is wonderful.
I think that's it.
Any other stories? Or you...
I know on my, I think that's all I can think. I mean, there are plenty of stories, but
Right.
you know, but I think that's all I can say
Or
for a minute.
preserving for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you still live in the county?
Yes.
And your family's here.
My family's here.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was born September the 7th, 1940 in Huntingtown. But about 6 months after I was born, I moved to Lower Marlboro.
Ah. And was your family relocated to here, or?
In Lower Marlboro,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
And
I lived in Lower Marlboro for at least 17 years
mm-hmm. Were you on a farm or?
on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
Right at the corner of Skaggs Road.
Mm-hmm.
On the right was our house. And we raised that farm from a man named Herbert Shekers.
Herbert Shekers?
Shekels.
Shekels. Oh, okay. So, and you worked the farm for 17 years?
17 years.
Uh-huh. And what did you do after that?
I moved then to Huntingtown, back to Huntingtown,
Uh-huh.
where we didn't raise the farm anymore.
Uh-huh. Where did you go to school?
I went to school in Mount Hope and W. Sampson Brooks High.
Ah, Sampson Brooks High. So, what did you do after you graduated?
Different jobs. I think my first job was at Chesapeake Beach.
And what did you do there?
Oh, I worked in the kitchen at, I think the name of the kitchen, the restaurant rather, it was Calvert House at that time. And then I left. After there, I worked at the same place where the sheriff office is. There was a building there called the Calvert House. That was the nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I left the nursing home and went to Springfield, Massachusetts, and worked there.
Ah, so you lived in Massachusetts for how long?
I stayed in Massachusetts then for 2 years at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Got lonesome and come back home.
I've heard that about Calvert County. It draws you back. Yes.
It does.
Yes. So can you tell me something about your family here in the county? I know that there are a lot of grosses.
Grosses?
Yeah.
The Gross is my marriage name.
Ah,
I was a Smith at that time.
you were a Smith. I know a Smith too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
She's.
My father was Clarence Smith,
Uh-huh.
and my mother's name was Ruth Smith.
Ruth Smith.
Ruth Brooks Smith.
Right.
Yes. And my mother was raised in Baltimore. My father was raised right here in Calvert County
Uh-huh.
on Smoky Road first.
Where's Smoky Road?
And Huntingtown,
Right
you
here
know
in
the road
Huntingtown.
called Smoky Road?
I don't, but I'm interested to hear about it.
It's in Huntingtown.
Uh-huh.
Connected, the roads to Lower Marlboro are connected.
Oh, okay.
And then he moved to Lower Marlboro
Mm.
after he was married.
Uh-huh. Okay, and so you grew up here on Lower Marlboro?
I grew up in Lower Marlboro.
Uh-huh, and you went to school here, and you worked in the county all your life, right?
Just about all my life, yes.
Ah, and is there some special story you would like to share with us about the history of your family?
Oh, well, most of my family on my father's side was all here in Calvert County.
Mm-hmm.
Right up there on the corner of St. John's Road,
Mm-hmm.
my grandfather and my great-grandfather and grandmother lived in that house.
Mm-hmm.
Until they died, I guess. Well, they did have a home too in Smoky. That's where they started. They were living in that house too in Smoky. But when they moved from Smoky, they moved right on that corner of St. John's Road. I think that the house that they were living in is now up above the
Golf course.
the oh
Golf course.
yeah, the golf club. Up above the golf club, that house is sitting there that my great grandparents were living in. When I was about 3 or 4 years old, I wasn't old enough to go to school, so I would go up on the corner and spend that day with them. And when the bus come to bring my older sister and brother from school, then I would catch them and walk back down to Skaggs Road where we lived.
Ah, that's great.
Most of my father's family lived here, right here in Huntingtown, but I mean Lower Marlboro. But my mother's family, a lot of them lived in Baltimore.
In Baltimore.
Yes,
And what did your family do down here? Were they farmers? Or?
farmers. Most of them were farmers.
Most of them. And
Yeah.
what crops did they grow besides tobacco?
Just tobacco and corn.
Tobacco and corn.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah. Well, that's a lot of hard work, both of them.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
And they still are farmers, or do they?
No, my parents are gone. In fact, in my mother's family, I'm the oldest one that's living right now. No, I'm next to the oldest. In my father's family, I'm the only one living right now. I'm 81 years old right now. So,
Yeah.
I just lost an aunt that was 97 on my mother's side of the family.
Father's side of the family. Your father's side of the family.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It gets hard because I'm also 81.
Are you?
On my side,
Yes.
oh yes, that was on my father's side of the my father's sister. So after her, that's
Yeah.
it, the older one.
Yes, it is. When you're the oldest, you know, you want to pass on stories. Is there some special story you'd like to pass on to your
Oh
family?
my goodness, no, not special. Just I want them just all to keep loving each other. 'Cause this family is about love, and that's what I want them to do. Just keep loving each other.
Well, that's a wonderful gift to wish them love. And is there some story you want to share?
So I'm her grandson,
Uh-huh.
Quentin Jones, like you said, our family's always been a loving family, and her mom, my great grandmother, both of them were very open with sharing family history, and as we were growing up, telling us about the older ones and what they used to do. And so they used to farm tobacco back here, but they also farmed for Dr. George Weems for many years. And so they kept the farm down there and raised tobacco on that farm for many, even into my childhood. They'd take us up onto the farm, and
You'd work too?
well, we didn't work, we played mostly. But we at least got to see what was going on and see how they made their living. She's 81, I'm 41. We were born in the same month, 2 days apart. And so we share a very close connection. Her great-grandmother, my fourth great-grandmother, was born a slave. She was born in 1855. Her name was Amanda Coates. She was born in Pennsylvania, but she moved down here as a child and raised her family here. And she actually lived in that same old house that's on the golf course as well. She lived in that for many years, and she's buried. Her and my great-great-great-grandparents, William and Nellie Smith, and my grandmother has a son, Michael Brown, and then we also have a cousin, Vincent Smith, who's a World War II vet that's buried at St. John's Chapel.
St. John's Chapel.
Right off of St. John's Chapel Road. And so recently this year we've kind of been given the go-ahead to be able to restore that cemetery and the building. And so it's
Congratulations.
140 years of history that's kind of sort of been lost, but we now have this opportunity to go back and kind of, bring some life back to it.
That is wonderful.
So that's really something amazing, and I'm glad I get to share that with my grandmother.
So you were born in the county too?
I've been in Calvert County all my life. I lived 300 feet away from her.
And your parents' names were?
My parents' names are Quentin and Pamela Jones. They also they're still with us. They were born in the county. They attended the old Huntingtown Elementary School. I think they went to Northern Middle and Northern High, or maybe Calvert Middle and Northern High. I went to Huntingtown Elementary, the new one, Plum Point Middle, and Calvert High. I graduated from Calvert High in 1998. And so I've been here all my life. I work for the Department of Justice. I'm a chaplain with the United States Army National Guard.
Wonderful.
I'm a preacher at my local church up in Lothian, Maryland. But prayerfully, when we get this one restored, I may come down here and preach a few sermons from this location.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Your grandma would be proud, right?
Yes.
That is right. So is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
No, I know. I'm so glad that, that we have Lower Marlboro Freedom Day. When we know that our ancestry includes slaves in our ancestry, but I'm thankful that I've been able to trace our family history back all the way to 1790. And for the most part, we originated right here in Calvert County. So we have a wealth of history in the county. As my grandmother said, they spent a lot of time in Lower Marlboro, Skaggs Road, and Briscoe's Turn Road. We have family that live down Smoky Road, which is the Mill Branch Road is sort of the connector between Lower Marlboro and Huntingtown, and Smoky Road is right off of Mill Branch Road. And so family there, and the blessing for me is that I grew up on family land. When I grew up, I lived in the house with my great grandmother, and then when I was 16, my mom bought a house next to my dad's grandmother, so we lived there for a number of years. And now my grandmother and my grandfather gave me land, and for the last 10 years, I've been living right next door to them. And so it's an amazing history we have in the county, and like you said, it just draws you back, and for some of us, it makes you not want to leave.
Right. Well, it's interesting how the families all live so near each other here in the county, and how they've managed to keep that close connection. It's something to be really proud of, and to share that love that you were talking about, and want to stay together. That is a wonderful thing.